Welcome back to my channel Lomzy Sews. In today's sewing tutorial, I will show you how to make a maxi dress for beginners. It's a very simple tutorial and I'm going to make it detailed for everybody to understand, and it's very simple and you can make this in less than 1 hour 30 minutes. If this is what you would like to learn, make sure not to skip any part of this video so that you don't miss any sewing tips and tricks. Let's start with the tutorial. To make this, I'm going to be using two fabrics, a plain one and a patterned one. The patterned, I'm going to use chiffon. You need a light chiffon. I use 2 yards, and for this I'm also going to use 2 yards. So I'll go ahead and fold this into 2. I will be cutting the front first, and I'll use the front to cut out the back. My fabric is folded into 2, as you can see. Next, I'm going to mark a starting line. This line will serve as the shoulder line, and this is where all the measurement, the vertical measurements will be on. So from this place, first I'm going to get the armhole length. For me, I'm going to use 10 inches. From also the shoulder line, I'm going to come down to the waistline. This is not necessary, and then the length of the upper side of the dress, which is 43 inches. I'll go ahead and square out this line. So this line is the armhole line. This is the waist line. This is actually not necessary, but for beginners, I just want to show you that this is where the waistline is supposed to be. Next, I'm going to mark the neck width, which is 3 inches. Divide your neck circumference by 5, whatever you have. That's what you're going to do here. Then I'm going to divide the shoulder divided by 2 and mark it here. I'm going to square it down to the armhole length. Mine is 16 and I divided it by 2, which is 8, and that's what I'm marking here. Next, I'm going to make a shoulder slope. So from that shoulder line, I'm going to come down 1.5 inches and connect it to the neck width. For beginners, we make shoulder slope because our shoulders are not straight. If you're using a shoulder pad, then you don't need to do this. Next, I'm going to mark the bust circumference. Divide the bust circumference by 4 and mark it here. Next, I'm going to mark the armhole curve. For us to mark that, we need to have a guide. So I'm going to divide the shoulder into 2, the shoulder line, divide it into 2 and come in by ½ inch. I'm going to connect this like this, and this one is going to be for the back. Remember, I am cutting this and I will use this as my pattern, and I'll use it to cut out for the front. I'm going to connect these lines, the ½ inch I came in, and that will be the armhole curve for the front. So I'm going to use this as the pattern for me to cut out for the back. Next, I'm going to mark the back neck width of 1 inch and connect it to the shoulder line. For the front, I'm going to come down 3.5 inches and also connect it to the shoulder, the neck width. Next, we are going to make this to be a flared dress. So here I'm going to curve this like this. So at the hem line, I'm going to, from the center front, I'm going to measure out 20 inches. This is for it to flay out very well. So I'll mark 20 inches here, and I'm going to connect it from the side seam. Can you see the difference between this one I squared down? So you're going to mark it like this. Make sure it's not straight. That's why I marked that line, so that you see how I squared this out. On the hemline, I'm going to come up by 3.5 inches. This is for the dress not to look funny at the hem. So you're going to connect it with a curve like this, as you can see me do. Next, I'm going to just go ahead and cut this out and add ½ inch sewing allowance. So just watch how I'm going to cut this. I'm not adding any sewing allowance at the hem. I'm adding ½ inch sewing allowance to the side seam, the neckline, the armhole, and all that. Remember, the length of the dress, the full length of the dress is 67 inches. And the upper part of the dress, I made it 43 inches. So for the lower part, you're going to minus 67 minus 43 inches. That's the length we are going to use for the lower part. So 67 minus 43 will be 24 inches. You add hemming allowance to that, which will make it 25 inches. So that's what I will use for the lower part of the dress. If you're working, you work with your own length. Remember, this is a very long maxi dress. So first I'm cutting out the back, and I'm using this as the pattern I'm using for the back. This is it. I'll use this to cut out the back. So this is it. I've placed it on the fabric, and I've left sewing allowance for the zipper allowance. I have ½ inch here. So I'll go ahead and cut out the neckline for the front. Also cut out the armhole for the front. I didn't do that. I forgot to do that, but I did it off camera. So I'm going to work on the dress now. So this is the front. I forgot to cut out the armhole. I'll cut that out. And this is the back with the zipper allowance. So first thing I'm going to do now to sew this, first I'm going to add zipper to the back from the neckline down to wherever it is. This is it, how it's looking. Next, I'm going to place the front right side facing together, and I'm going to sew the shoulder and also sew the side seam. The side seam I added ½ inch, so that's what I'm going to use as the sewing allowance. This is it after sewing it, as you can see. Next, I'm going to fold this into two like this. We are going to make a notch, and this notch is where the pleated design will stop. So it depends on your design line. I'm going to notch the place I want the pleated sleeve to be. So I'm going to notch, just notch like 1 inch away from the armhole, and then we are going to make pleats for the sleeve. So for me to make the pleats, what I have here is 60 inches in length by 5 inches. I'm going to fold this like this and sew here, and also sew the other side. So I'll go to my machine now, and I'm going to pleat this for the sleeve. So you pleat this, and that's what we're going to use for the sleeve. So for the neckline, we are going to also make a pleat. I've made a pleat for this. So I'm going to place this like this. For the sleeve, you're going to place it and sew it round, starting from the notch that we made. You sew this round. Also for the neckline, I'm going to also go to my machine, starting from the zipper area, and I'll sew the pleated design around the neckline. So this is it after sewing both the neckline and the sleeve. You can see how neat it's looking. Next, we are going to make a top stitch. I've already overlocked this, as you can see. So you're going to fold this in like this and stitch it on top of the overlock. Also, you're going to fold this like this and do a top stitch. So I'll do that, and we are going to go over to the gathers. For this lower part, I already told you I'm using 25 inches for the lower part, and I gathered the lower part. So you can times whatever you have, the flare you have at the hemline, times that by 1.5. That's what you're going to use for the lower part. I'll go ahead and hem the lower part all around. You can also decide to weave it. So guys, with this is how this is looking. We have actually come to the end of today's sewing tutorial. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.